he had been briefed and the briefing wasn't so good. And I'll just give you the one quote. He said he cried himself to sleep every night during the briefing.
Primo blog di esopolitica italiano, con l'obiettivo di raccogliere, condividere e commentare un maggior numero di notizie, in modo più tempestivo. Che cos'è l'esopolitica? Conosciuta anche come astropolitica, è la politica dello spazio, che comprende i trattati spaziali, il diritto dello spazio e soprattutto l'impatto politico di un contatto con intelligenze non umane. In un'intervista del 2023, il pilota Ryan Grace ha pronunciato una frase molto rilevante, che seppur passata in sordina, sembra non essere stata enunciata a caso.
I've noticed from commercial pilots that there is absolutely an uptick. Some relatively new information, I guess you could say, is that I am hearing from cases that are more broadly dispersed. So I have been reporting that north of the Atlantic and the North Pacific as well, pilots that are doing those transatlantic or trans-Pacific flights are seeing various objects, lights that are coming down, behaving in strange ways, holding in a pattern, look like almost like they're dogfighting in space in some way, kind of back and forth with each other. I've reported that coming out near the Big Dipper in the hearings. And since then, I've heard from many other pilots that have reported similar sightings that match the same description in other parts, such as in north-south flights off the eastern seaboard and elsewhere.
Utilizzando il termine dogfight, sembra che le intelligenze non umane fossero coinvolte in scontri aerei, anzi nello spazio. Inoltre, secondo quanto suggerisce questo articolo, sembra che alcuni velivoli siano precipitati sul nostro pianeta a causa di tali combattimenti aerei tra velivoli sconosciuti. Nell'episodio precedente vi abbiamo lasciato con queste domande. Siamo nel mezzo di una guerra intergalattica? Anzi, interdimensionale? Una guerra per quale motivo esattamente? Quanto tempo fa è iniziata? Esiste un casus belli? Qualcuno ci difende o difende un suo investimento e viene attaccato? Quando nel primo episodio Tom Delonge sosteneva che siamo un po' come delle mucche, intendeva del bestiame di proprietà di qualcuno? L'episodio numero 23, l'effetto autostoppista, e il 34 riteniamo che siano fondamentali prima di continuare con questo episodio. Mentre aspettiamo prove dirette e concrete, continuiamo a condurre approfondimenti e investigazioni, cercando le uniche prove che ci fanno trovare, cioè quelle indirette. Oggi esploriamo il lato oscuro della questione UFO. Per farlo occorre aver ben chiari 3 punti chiave. Primo, l'autorevolezza di Tom Delonge. L'abbiamo già affrontata nei primi 3 episodi, ma possiamo riassumere in breve che tutti gli uomini della CIA coinvolti nella disclosure danno sempre credito a Tom Delonge. Ma oggi vi portiamo un'ulteriore testimonianza di Bryce Zabel, un giornalista legato anche lui alla disclosure, che spiega come mai Tom Delonge è adatto a questo ruolo, confermando allo stesso tempo la sua autorevolezza.
How does Tom DeLonge manage to get around that then and get to the point he did when Clinton couldn't?
Well, okay, Tom DeLonge is deniable, right? You can say about Tom DeLonge, what would he know? He's a rock musician. He's probably making it all up, which, by the way, Ross and I do not believe he's making it all up. I mean, clearly he has had the conversations. The Clinton emails that were released actually proved that Podesta, John Podesta, and DeLonge had conversations. So, but he's more deniable. Whereas Clinton, a president, I mean, if a president starts, let me put it this way: if Bill Clinton had gone on a show like the Joe Rogan show and expounded for 2 hours about aliens and ancient aliens and all the things Tom DeLonge talks about, that would have been a story that would have mesmerized the world and changed the world overnight. Tom DeLonge does the same thing, and we go, that's interesting. What, you want to get breakfast? It's like they're just different things. It doesn't mean, by the way, that DeLonge's a liar. It just means that he wasn't president. He was a rock star. And again, the one thing that Richard Dolan and I always thought while researching after disclosure is there's got to be somebody. If you've had an 80-year secret, there's got to be some, and you've spent trillions of dollars on it, not just doing the research, but covering it up. There's got to be somebody or some group that has a plan for how this is supposed to go. Now, maybe they keep innovating on the plan, but the plan obviously included something that involved Tom DeLonge. And it may have been a trial balloon. It may have simply been, okay, let's try this thing with DeLonge and see if that works. And probably by now, if you were an insider, you'd say it worked as well as we could expect. It got TTSA out there. It got some of these people well known. And now we're moving into a new phase. And the people who are pressing for further disclosures are probably reasonably happy with what happened.
Secondo, diverse entità interagiscono con gli umani. Oggi quindi ci concentreremo su una sola specie di intelligenze non umane, quella malvagia. Questo è il punto chiave di questo episodio. Una sola specie e non le altre, quindi non facciamo di tutt'erba un fascio. Terzo, cargo cult. Nascita di una religione. Dopo essere stati colonizzati dall'Australia alla fine del XIX secolo e alla fine della Seconda Guerra Mondiale, dopo che le loro terre erano state utilizzate dagli americani, gli abitanti della Papua Nuova Guinea e della Melanesia in generale hanno cercato di riprodurre oggetti tecnici sconosciuti sperando di ottenere lo stesso risultato di quelli originali. Ad esempio, dopo aver visto persone che parlavano in cuffia, che davano istruzioni agli aerei che portavano merci, ricrearono le cuffie di legno, con delle noci di cocco, aerei e antenne di bambù. Era nata una religione. Si aspettavano di poter evocare gli aerei e ottenere le stesse merci di quando gli australiani parlavano nelle loro vere cuffie. Ovviamente non funzionò. Non avevano il concetto di produzione delle merci, né quello di distribuzione, né quello di un aereo costruito dall'uomo. Questo ha portato alla definizione di culto del cargo cult in inglese, che fu coniato per la prima volta dal Pacific Island Monthly, quando nel novembre del 1945 pubblicò un articolo sui problemi affrontati dagli indigeni della Nuova Guinea dopo la loro imprudente esposizione all'avanzata cultura occidentale e ai missionari cristiani dell'epoca post-bellica. Avendo ben chiari questi 3 punti, iniziamo la nostra avventura. Nel film di fantascienza Monster of California, prodotto dalla To The Stars, quindi da Tom Delonge, pubblicato negli Stati Uniti su Prime Video e non disponibile in Italia, compare questa immagine. Sappiamo sia da Tom Delonge che da Steve Bassett che la fantascienza è stata spesso utilizzata per veicolare informazioni riguardo alle intelligenze non umane. Ovviamente, essendo fantascienza, tutto è lecito, anche dire la verità, ma non sapremo mai esattamente qual è il grado di verità. In pratica, l'esposizione alla fantascienza riduce lo shock ontologico. Se in futuro scoprissimo che esiste il teletrasporto, o il replicatore di Star Trek, o il ponte ologrammi, sapremo già relazionarci con una nuova realtà. Rimane da capire come reagiremmo se esistessero i Gorn, i Borg, oppure la specie 8472. In ottica di disclosure, e siccome è stato prodotto da Tom DeLonge, riteniamo che abbia senso correlare molte sue dichiarazioni esternate da lui nel 2023, scritte anche nel libro Secret Machine, e che si trovano anche nel film Monsters of California. In pratica sembra che esista una specie di gerarchia tra le intelligenze non umane. Possiamo infatti leggere i nomi utilizzati dalle varie religioni, tra cui angeli e demoni e gli altri. The Others. Anche il generale Nell accenna dura gerarchia, e questo non è fantascienza.
I think we need a sociological model for analyzing the societal impact for disclosure and then developing mitigation strategies a priori to address that. Now, some people think that may be less of a concern or more of a concern. It's kind of irrelevant. Like, it's an unknown right now. We need a plan to address it to lower that concern. Codify the laws of ethics in an environment where we might have a hierarchy of being, where everyone isn't necessarily having equal competitive potential. It's essentially translating our special relativity version of ethics to a general relativity version of ethics, where you've got the problem of a more advanced civilization coming in and disrupting a less advanced civilization. It's the same issue with AI or colonialism or non-human intelligence.
Nel post-it azzurro si evince che dovrebbe esserci una guerra in corso per l'anima umana, più specificamente una proxy war, una guerra per procura. Questo dettaglio aggiunge un elemento più ampio e spirituale alla discussione, suggerendo che gli eventi potrebbero essere legati non solo a scontri fisici, ma anche a una sorta di conflitto metafisico o di influenza sugli aspetti più profondi dell'essere umano, come l'anima. Il giornalista Bryce Zabel ha raccontato un aneddoto inquietante riguardo ad un briefing fatto al sottosegretario della Marina, nell'entourage di Reagan, riguardo al fenomeno UFO. E Tom Delonge in un tweet ha scritto che ritiene sia vero, scrivendo anche che ha compassione per chi nel governo porta questo peso sulle spalle. Ascoltiamo l'aneddoto.
And I didn't know him at the time, and he told me a story about when he was an 18-year-old, and he had been hired to drive a car across the United States to deliver it to someone who was in Reagan's cabinet, who lived in the neighborhood he was at and was a family friend, and that this person was the Undersecretary of the Navy in the first term and Secretary of Energy in the second term, and that he told Brent some harrowing things, which I'm just not going to get into right now. It's too long of a story, but suffice it to say, this person felt that his very basis of reality had been challenged, that he had been briefed and the briefing wasn't so good. And I'll just give you the one quote. He said he cried himself to sleep every night during the briefing period, which apparently was 6 to 8 weeks. And Brent asked him why, and he said, because I have daughters, and this is the world they're going to live in. And that is kind of existentially disquieting, right? So, I actually believe that story to be true. I mean, I've looked into it, and I know Brent's truthfulness. So I think there is a darker side to this. It doesn't mean there isn't a lighter side. I have not heard the lighter side in the same kind of graphic relief that I heard about the darker side.
Tom Delonge nel 2023 è stato intervistato molte volte e ha risposto anche ad alcune domande via Twitter. Mi è stato detto che ci sono 3 fazioni nel Dipartimento della Difesa riguardanti gli UAP. Una di fondamentalisti cristiani convinti che gli UAP siano demoni, l'altra convinta che siano viaggiatori del tempo e l'ultima fazione, la più segreta, che sostiene di conoscere le origini e di essere in contatto. Tom risponde: beh, e se fossero dei viaggiatori del tempo e noi fossimo in contatto? E se fossero demoni, Jinn, Archon di tutti gli antichi testi religiosi combinati? Ma io cosa ne so? Tom Delonge menziona spesso il concetto di anima e la sua relazione con il fenomeno. Afferma che questi esseri sono molto antichi e molto potenti, ma sono impediti dal superare una sorta di membrana spirituale. Sebbene l'esistenza dell'anima non sia ancora stata dimostrata dalla scienza moderna, riteniamo che il fenomeno UFO sia in qualche modo legato al concetto di anima. Nigel Kerner, autore di The Grace and the Harvesting of Souls, I grigi e la raccolta delle anime, giunge all'inquietante conclusione che la missione principale dei grigi è quella di rubare l'anima umana, perché i grigi sono robot biologici dotati di intelligenza artificiale, senza anima quindi, mentre l'anima umana è riciclata e immortale. Un'altra ricercatrice UFO, Linda Moulton Howe, nel suo libro Glimpses of Other Realities, Scorci di altre realtà, parla del forte interesse del fenomeno UFO per l'anima umana e del concetto di riciclaggio delle anime.
The UFO phenomenon is interested in the bad things, and it brings along a lot of bad things. And it's not because that we're going to come out and say UFOs are real. Well, guess what? UFOs are bad news. Deal with it. They just are. The UFO phenomenon has a hive mind, okay? These creatures they potentially don't have souls. They're like clones, and they worship their own technology to some degree. You have shows like Ancient Aliens and every other thing out there that's coming up with these bizarre ideas that aliens built everything. And now people are not, or now people are, for a lack of a better term, worshiping aliens. Aliens built everything. Aliens made us. Aliens are the gods. Aliens this, aliens that. And I said, that's what happens when there's a vacuum. and it got filled with something that is no good. So we're going to come out of this thinking that aliens are good, and they're not, you know, and at least this one specific race I'm talking about. So, and I call them the bugs, because, you know why I call them the bugs? Because other people call them the bugs, you know? So my whole point here is we need something different. Now, if there's a TV show that just talks about like events, like this happened and this happened, and there's some questions about it, that's one thing. But when there's a TV show, when it sits down and it's just glorifying, you know, abstract ideas that aliens are responsible for everything,
right? Just
because it's filling in the hour and people are trying, that's bad. That's bad news. This is a real topic. How it was told to me, the universe is teeming with life, okay? Teeming, not just like, hey, we might find a little bit over here and there. Teeming. You have intelligences at all different levels on different planets. You have organic intelligence, which is like human beings, lots of humans, super advanced humans, superhumans with telepathic powers, and some humans that are just like us, some humans that are cavemen. You also have inorganic beings. You have beings that are on rock planets and gas planets that oxygen's poisonous to them, right? You also have weird bands of light that are alive, that swim like worms in the vacuum of space, the way a whale does in an ocean.
Sure,
okay?
Sure.
You have amoebas that are floating around sucking up energy. Those amoebas could be as big as Jupiter, or they could be like a Volkswagen. You know, it's like it's teeming with life, and we were so stuck on ourselves that we never looked up. You know, and I think what's happening now is we're looking up.
All right, let's talk about some of the stuff you were told that you can share. The biggest question, who are they? I mean, I think I said in the introduction that some people in your group refer to them not as aliens or the visitors, they refer to them as the others. Is there significance in using that term?
You know, I don't know the significance of the others. The phenomenon is not used. Aliens is not used. It's the others, and when you're taught, the way it's explained to me is that they are gods, with the little g. So the entire UFO phenomenon is about multiple gods that fight amongst themselves and by design factionalize mankind into different religions to step back and let us fight each other, so it has other things that it wants to accomplish, and we don't notice them because we're too involved fighting each other. So, and they know that. So our government knows that. Our government knows that the others are instigating war amongst mankind. But the other issue is that these gods from you got to look back at ancient history and all those stories about gods that came down and did this and that. It's all true. So that's the other thing. You got to, and I'll get into that in the docuseries. There's some of that stuff I don't want to get into tonight. But the government is very aware that this intelligence is pitting different countries against each other based on religion, on purpose. And it's a scary scenario. So it's like it's a multiple front war that we're fighting, because now we have to worry about each other and we have to worry about the others. So that's part of the reason for the secrecy, is we don't want everyone knowing our vulnerabilities, and we don't want everyone knowing the advancements we've made to protect everybody against.
We've been in this a long time, and I've been right there pounding the pulpit along with everybody else, saying we're ready for disclosure. Tell us the truth. End this cover up. And you have to step back and wonder sometimes, is that the case? And the longer people are in this field, some of the colleagues that I work with over the years, the people whose opinions I respect the most, all sort of gravitate to that position. Hey, maybe this is not such a good idea, because this stuff could be profoundly disturbing to get the full picture, that we might be an agricultural product, that there is some kind of entity that might as well be a god, or the You know, I'm thinking about the stories of Skinwalker Ranch that we've written about, where this thing at best is ambivalent, but it can do all kinds of stuff. It seems to feed off of fear. It can be very dark and threatening at times. I remember laughing at people who would say, it's not aliens, it's demons. I couldn't laugh anymore. I'm not so sure about that.
There is a very, very strong link between what people think demons are from the Bible and other religions and the UFO phenomenon. And what you have is something that doesn't like man, period, and something that feels either jealous of or has some kind of plan for what man is to be. And that just makes it that much worse when you think about it. I have a quote here I should read you. It says, and this is from one of the advisors, "Would the link of aliens creating man, who then created God to keep us in our place, be something worth keeping secret?" Mind you, secret with a K, which is how we do secret machines. So I think so. We're talking about the biggest institutions on the planet and the world's major religions. It's bigger than just the big bad U.S. government, and going back to the Greeks and including Russians and Germans make it sufficiently global across centuries. Maybe evidence of disappeared ancient cultures, Easter Island, the Maya, the Inca. That's evidence of what happened for those who did not obey, thus encouraging the secret to be kept. And could the story evolve from how different groups of men exploited this technology to see how the entire secret is uncovered, rewriting world history and shattering many of our most well-regarded holy institutions, except this time when they come to wipe us out like the other ones, we are actually ready for them. And that readiness is another example why things have been kept quiet for so long and has been a strange international partnership indeed.
Queste creature, dette anche gli insetti, dai professionisti della CIA, sono ciò che nei nostri vecchi testi religiosi si chiamavano demoni o jinn o parassiti astrali inferiori. Queste creature sembrano essere maligne, senz'anima ed estremamente ostili all'umanità. Tornando agli insetti, sembra che siano organizzati in una sorta di mente alveare collettiva, di cui fanno parte gli alieni definiti popolarmente i grigi, che ormai sappiamo essere dei droni robot, biologici, dotati di intelligenza artificiale, che fanno capo ad uno speciale insetto, la regina, somigliante ad una mantide religiosa. Questa è in pratica la descrizione dei Borg di Star Trek, uno dei peggiori nemici della Federazione. Su questo argomento torneremo in futuro. Ma sentiamo direttamente Tom Delonge.
Yeah, I was just reading a book not so long ago where there's a ufologist that got invited to this seance thing where they were channeling and interacting with this like fucking demon or something. And they're all sitting in a circle, and then they put the one guy in the middle, and he starts channeling and gets possessed by this entity. And the first entity is like, "Hey, we are these entities that are adjacent to you in another timeline, and all this stuff, and we can't feel emotion, but we need you to host to help us feel emotion." But then shit starts going horribly wrong, paranormal stuff, the temperature drops, all this weird shit, and everyone in that room except for 2 people died within 6 months, and weird occurrences. And this guy was one of the guys that didn't. And what I find is really strange about that is that when you having a host consciousness in your body, and then looking at some of the visitations and what some of the evidence looks like, it looks like there's beings that don't have, it's like maybe they don't have souls, maybe they're AI, maybe they're a different life form like an insect that grew. It's like, well, I'm not scared of a goldfish, so I leave Earth, I come back 10 billion years later, that goldfish is a T-Rex, and you're like, yeah. Whoa. And then you leave Earth, then you'll go, that T-Rex is now like a lot shorter, and it's like a fucking lizard dude that's telepathic and building spaceships. And you're like, it took like 20 billion years, but it happened because no one fucking fucked with this planet, you know?
Right.
So you can see how life just grows in a certain direction. So then you kind of wonder, well, if something grew for millions, billions of years that never had a consciousness to begin with, like a fly or something, and then now it can kind of pop over laterally into our fucking timeline, it's going to come on you like flies on dog shit. Oh, what is this? Huh? What is this? And they're just like looking at you.
Right.
How scary would that be if in your bed and you got these big bug-eyed insects that are like, what are you? What is going on? And they start cutting you open, and they're like, and then all of a sudden you get scared, and they're like, that's an interesting energy. They're all, feel that. We can feel something. You know, I can see that being the case where emotion and feeling and love is like so gnarly. It's like they want to understand it. They want to have it. But what if they figure out, like, hypothetically, what if they figure out that, that we're immortal, that our soul is part of something greater and bigger.
Right.
And we might die and have a painful life, but we learned a lot of lessons, and we might reincarnate, you know, to learn more, whatever. And they're sitting here going, if we die, we have nothing. They're all, we want that. And then what if we have those interactions and we start writing books in the Bible? It says Satan wants your soul. Demons want your soul. You know, it starts to all make a little bit more sense, right?
So far, my general sense is that UFOs, this whole thing, is a good thing because they don't want us to blow up the world with nuclear weapons.
Well, people want that to be the case. I wish that was the case. The evidence doesn't suggest that's the case. I think UFOs don't want us getting too powerful. I don't think that, because you go and just look at the nuclear weapons. You got to go back thousands of years and go, in the earliest documentations of mankind's encounters with the spirit world, what was happening, just macro brushstroke.
Okay.
And it's always about managing, suppressing consciousness, confusing our belief systems, and keeping us separate from one another and not letting us get powerful.
When you say that they're worried, the UFOs don't want humans to become too powerful, like,
and I think there's more than one too. Like, I don't think there's like
right.
one group here, so it's hard.
Like
we
the
all
Greys?
Sure.
It's like it's like when we. It would be more
Right.
better to say UFOs. It's probably better to say, you know, competing intelligences, because who knows?
Right.
It's like you're in the ocean, you see a dolphin, so you're like, okay, so this place is full of dolphins. Then you see a fucking jellyfish, you're like, whoa, that's weird. You see a whale, but then you see a Coke can, and you're like, then you find the boat, but you're still not even thinking that the boat's from land. You know, so we don't know. The universe has all that. You know,
fair point.
the evidence from people that have had interactions for fucking thousands of years, including the past 100 years, on all different types of people, ethnicities, and different fucking cultures and different continents, tends to point the same direction, that they're very interested in our consciousness and our soul. And they're very interested in making sure that we don't know they're here, and that we don't all align and understand who we are, what we're capable of. And like, because the truth is once we understand what consciousness is, and it's not Jesus, you know,
Right.
once we understand that, then we start realizing you can move objects with your mind. You can hear people's thoughts telepathically. Like, if you meet a chick and she wants to fuck you, that's telepathy, but it's such a primal animal frequency, you can feel it. Wow, this chick's like game, right? But if you see that same chick and she's sad, you don't really feel that just instantly. You might kind of, it's just not as strong and easy as like a sexual kind of frequency or something. Well, that's all telepathy. And I think like once we learn like what we're capable of and how to use, how to transduce our environment.
What do the Greek gods look like? Well, they got robes, you know, and they glow, you know, and they're fucking scary, you know. Then you go down to like Machu Picchu or some of these other places like down in South America, and they have stories of, oh yeah, these dudes in white robes came and whatever, you know. And then you got like demons, you know. Okay, what do the demons do? I don't know, like little creatures that come in and take you in the middle of the night, and you're paralyzed, and they want your soul or some shit. And then you go to the Middle East and the Quran and the Egyptian Book of the Dead and all that kind of stuff. They talk about the jinn. What are the jinn? Oh, they're like these little creatures that manipulate you and come and take you in the middle of the night, whatever. Then you read the Gnostic texts and they got these things called the archons. Well, what are the archons? Oh yeah. They come in and they take you in the middle of the night. You know, it's like, you kind of start to kind of go, oh shit, what the fuck's going on here? And so I wouldn't, you know, to give us hope, false hope, whatever, as long as the hope isn't the same as everyone else, we're not going to get along very well. And why do they not want us to get along? Probably because if we all got along and realized the fuck's going on, we might be pretty powerful. We might be pretty important. We might have, you know, this is like, imagine you have a kid that's like Superman. If he fucking realizes what he can do and all he has to do is like calm his mind and he can like pick up cars and like he can take over the world, right? You'd never want that kid to calm his mind.
Se non vi bastano gli insetti, Tom Delonge negli ultimi mesi ha twittato le cose più bizzarre. Vediamo alcuni dei suoi tweet. Ad esempio, questo di agosto del 2023. Non avere paura. Nessuno ha mai capito il perché abbia twittato un gatto umanoide armato. Un militare zoomorfo. In pratica corpo da umano ma viso da animale. Secondo voi perché? È legato al fatto che alcune entità sono zoomorfe? Ci riferiamo ovviamente all'episodio numero 23, quello con gli uomini lupo e i cani che fumano. Tom Delonge scrive anche che alcune persone nel governo sono eroi, una cosa che avevamo già sentito dire da lui Elizondo. Scrive: come molti altri, quando si approfondisce un mistero, anch'io ero ignorante. Le persone che lavorano al governo per risolvere il vero problema degli UFO sono patrioti, moralmente sani e stanno facendo del loro meglio. Alcuni hanno commesso degli errori, hanno lavorato in una situazione di ambigua mancanza di supervisione. Ma cosa farebbe ognuno di noi se fossimo gravati da tutto ciò? Penso davvero che non ci rendiamo conto di quanto sia spaventoso e snervante per coloro che hanno a che fare con la realtà quotidiana, mentre cercano di tenerci alle partite di calcio, nei centri commerciali, vivendo una vita beatamente ignorante. Questo è peggio della Seconda Guerra Mondiale, dell'11 settembre e del Covid messi insieme. Un utente Twitter, utilizzando il tag UFO Twitter, ha ricevuto una risposta direttamente da Tom Delonge. L'utente ha scritto: gli UFO sono così avanzati che potrebbero farci fuori se volessero, sono in grado di viaggiare fino a noi, bla bla bla, e se fossero solo il 10% più avanzati della nostra tecnologia, o se avessero modificato la tecnologia di un'altra specie, potrebbero essere uguali o inferiori agli esseri umani? Tom Delonge ha risposto: a parte il fatto che possono piegare il tessuto dello spazio-tempo, manipolare e controllare le reazioni dell'antimateria, contenere e trasferire l'anima umana, alterare e far progredire il genoma umano e condividere la nostra coscienza, devono essere tipo 3 anni avanti a noi? Sempre Tom Delonge se l'è presa direttamente con il SETI, a causa di una pubblicità con Morgan Freeman. Forse il SETI dovrebbe puntare i suoi telescopi qui? Guardare nelle profondità dei nostri oceani? In alcune catene montuose del Sud America? Nella parte posteriore della Luna? E in una serie di altri strani eventi elettromagnetici naturali? Chissà, forse troverebbero davvero qualcosa e non sprecherebbero i soldi delle tasse. Sentiamo anche altre analisi del giornalista George Knapp e di Tom Delonge sul fenomeno UFO.
So the overall picture that we get filling in the blanks from what you've said tonight is that something sort of dropped in our laps back at the beginning of the Cold War. And the same kind of thing seems to have dropped in the laps of maybe the Russians and maybe others.
And, quote, potentially just to see who is stronger. And that's a scary thing. That's, quote, we don't know. But that's what that's literally how these guys have to think.
It's like a multi-level chess game or something.
That's exactly what it is. It's a multi-level chess game, and they have to sit back and go, what is the reason they just happen to have had a crash here? What is the reason there's a huge religious war going on right now? What is the reason that all of a sudden, China's defense budget has quadrupled in the past few years? It's all these things, and I think that creates a pretty stressful picture. And the other thing is too, they can't come out and tell everybody that all these religions that are firing all over the planet for the past thousands of years are based off things they saw in the sky. It's like that's gonna hit hard at home for a lot of people. It's gonna be hard to digest.
Charles Fort, the founder of the Fortean movement, he had a statement that he said after all the years of strange stories that he collected, he feels that we're property. And then I remember, just as an adjunct to that, right when I first started chasing these mysteries, there was a book called Gods of Eden by a guy named William Bramley, who wrote it and then just kind of went away, which sort of painted the picture that we are like cattle. We're an agricultural product. If you wanted to know why there might be reasons why some of the big picture is kept from us, I mean, people say they're ready to know the full picture. I'm not sure they are.
Yeah, I don't know if people are either. I do know, and as of 2 weeks ago, we all had suspicions about cattle mutilations being involved with the phenomenon. I do know that, yes, absolutely they are. And I mean, just a couple of days, they found, 10 or 20 elk lined up in the snow with all their jaws cored up and their genitals all cut out and the blood was missing, and the same exact thing that's been happening for decades. And that's creepy. That's demonic. That's evil, weird, scientific, dark stuff going on, and it's been happening for a very long time. I think it would scare people that we might be property. We might be,
harvested.
You got to look at the big picture. Is that what's happening right now is everyone believes something different about God, and we're all killing each other over it, and we all have advanced weaponry based off crashes that just happen to fall on our borders. And then while we're doing that, these things are zipping around and doing weird things with animals, doing weird things with people and abductions, and they're off, trying to accomplish something. You and I have had discussions about the pain and the anger and the emotional energy of all the war. Maybe there's something there that is something that they're interested in, the emotional side of things, and which is hard to think of, but it's still energy,
I can hear people sort of gnashing their teeth and thinking, well, this can't be true, therefore it isn't, which is sort of the same approach a lot of people have taken to UFOs in general. I don't think it's true, therefore I'm not going to give it any thought, and it can't be true, and so I've made up my mind. I get the feeling you're going to run into a lot of that.
You might, or I might, but I'm not doing this. I'm not stupid. I didn't walk off a gigantic rock and roll stage that was really easy living to jump into something that's very dangerous, deals with national security, and meet with a bunch of people in very clandestine ways, to write a bunch of very expensive, labor-intensive books and make a bunch of risky movies with a bunch of people in Hollywood that are frankly sometimes hard to get along with because it's a different culture than I'm used to. I didn't do all of that because I'm dumb. I didn't do all of it for fame. And so people have to realize that, and I think a lot of my fans know this stuff. They know that when I'm into something, I jump in head first, and I go all the way with it. This is gotta be the most important thing I've ever done. And if it works the way that I think it can work, it could be paradigm shifting.
E siccome oggi non vogliamo farci mancare nulla, sentiamo anche cosa ne pensa David Sheehan, l'avvocato di alcuni whistleblower, incluso Lou Elizondo.
I know personally virtually all the people that are still alive that are involved in this process. I know what their backgrounds are. I know what their prejudices are. I know what their strengths and weaknesses are. And so I'm trying to provide some kind of service as counsel to this movement, to have an institute that can bring all of these people together and vet this information and produce information in a constructive, positive way to our people to exercise our democratic power inside the most powerful nation in the world, to be able to play a constructive role in moving our entire human civilization into this new era of the post-contact era, so that we can have positive and mutually beneficial relations with the extraterrestrial civilization. This is not science fiction anymore. That we have to realize that we're in a larger universe, and we're one of a number of many tens of millions of species, and we need to figure out what our proper place is. About capabilities that our human family has, our species has, that have not been developed. What's happening is, much like the government has kept secret from the people their knowledge about this stuff, the churches in synagogues have kept only an extraordinarily rarefied portion of their community be informed about these capacities that our human family has.
È arrivato il momento di riassumere per punti ciò che Tom Delonge sostiene nei suoi libri e nelle varie interviste. La vera ragione per cui abbiamo continuato a fare così tanti test nucleari è perché ci siamo resi conto che c'erano UFO presenti e potevamo neutralizzarli. Nell'era moderna, gli altri hanno deliberatamente fatto cadere dei velivoli per darci la tecnologia, per fare in modo che rimanessimo in guerra l'uno contro l'altro o per causare divisioni e per esserne dipendenti e non essere presenti a ciò che sta realmente accadendo. Quindi gli incidenti UFO a volte servono per darci un aiuto tecnologico, ma non è un vero aiuto, è progettato per consentire a una parte un vantaggio e perpetuare il conflitto tra le fazioni umane. La correlazione tra UFO e le armi nucleari è l'opposto di ciò che molti credono. Non ci stanno avvertendo della nostra imminente autodistruzione, le studiano perché è l'unica cosa che può danneggiarli. Per quanto siano avanzati, non riescono a sfuggire alle esplosioni. Con ogni incidente UFO dovremo sempre porci le domande: è stato intenzionale o non intenzionale? Gli incidenti UFO potrebbero essere dovuti al fatto che è stato abbattuto, un fulmine lo ha fatto cadere o hanno fatto finta che fosse stato abbattuto. L'incidente di Roswell è avvenuto veramente. Tuttavia l'evento UFO più importante, secondo Tom, è Starfish Prime, un test nucleare nello spazio. Dice che hanno imparato molto sugli effetti degli EMP sugli UFO. Grazie al test nucleare di Starfish Prime, quello che hanno trovato è diverso da quello che hanno trovato a Roswell, ma ugualmente importante. E questo è tutto ciò che può dire. La realtà è più ampia e non abbiamo accesso. L'universo pullula di vita intelligente di ogni tipo. Le NHI malevole presenti sulla Terra hanno manipolato l'umanità per la maggior parte del tempo, se non per tutta la nostra storia. I suoi consiglieri si riferiscono a loro come gli altri o gli insetti. Gli insetti hanno una mente alveare e sono interessati alla coscienza, che è qualcosa a cui non abbiamo ancora imparato ad attingere. Gli esseri umani hanno un'anima. Gli insetti non hanno un'anima. Sono parassiti e si nutrono di conflitti umani e negatività. Hanno ispirato le religioni del mondo allo scopo di dividerci. Lo hanno fatto fingendosi degli dei e fornendo messaggi religiosi dai cieli. Possono impiantare visioni e idee direttamente nella nostra mente. Le persone incaricate dell'insabbiamento credono che le scritture religiose del mondo siano basate su eventi reali che coinvolgono la manipolazione da parte degli altri, allo scopo di creare sistemi di credenze in competizione per tenerci divisi e in guerra. Lo stato della società umana è fondamentalmente innaturale ed è il prodotto di questa persistente manipolazione. Gli insetti desiderano tenerci schiavi e incoscienti. La loro più grande minaccia è la coscienza umana e il risveglio spirituale, perché potrebbe unire l'umanità contro di loro. I fenomeni di abduction sono reali. Gli eventi di abduction implicano la manipolazione telepatica e l'impianto di idee da parte degli altri, così come la manipolazione genetica. Non sono incontri benevoli, anche se possono farci credere che lo siano. Infine, cantare in nome degli dei, di Buddha, eccetera, eccetera, quando si viene rapiti, ti protegge dal rapimento. Non è la religione, ma la fede in un potere superiore.